and welcome to another episode of the Choose954 podcast, episode 90 with Sergio Gomez, ahead of his upcoming Creative Zen talk. If you didn't know about Choose954, myself, Evan Snow, and my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, as arts advocates, community builders, and placemakers, started an initiative to cultivate culture and community in my native Broward County. I'm very proud to be born and raised from, in an effort to keep people in the know with all the great things that are going on to make this a better place to live and not just a better place to vacation because we live here. The point of the podcast is to connect you with interesting people like him that do amazing things, and you're going to find out quite a bit here. So without much further ado, for those that are not familiar with you, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself and who Sergio Gomez is?
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you, Evan, for coming. Super happy to have you here. So very excited. I'm originally from Mexico. I was born in Mexico, and I grew up in Mexico until I was 16. Came to Chicago. From Chicago, I pretty much that's where I started my career, which we'll talk about more later. Ended up in Florida now. That's how we met. And so I'm an artist, first and foremost. That's my first title. That since I was a kid, I always loved to make art. Then I was always interested in what happens on the other side of the desk once your art leaves the studio. So then I became a gallery owner as well, curator. Working with artists, I realized also the need for understanding all the things about marketing your art, how to get it out to collectors and things of that nature. So we became also an artist coach, helping artists to kind of like find their voice and find how to get that voice out into the world. And what else am I? I think that's about.
We're a couple other hats: father, human being.
Yes, that's right. So,
overall nice guy, husband.
husband too. Yeah, exactly. We have two kids. My wife, she's a psychologist, Dr. Ana Gomez, and we have also collaborated in many ways, working with artists. We have two kids who are also here in FAU, studying. They both love art. That they don't have an art career lined up, but they both do art also on the side, and they love it. And they've been part of our art life since they were born.
I can only imagine, and maybe they'll find it later in life. But for your life, how did you initially get started in the arts yourself?
So the story begins, actually in Mexico, right? So Mexico, I grew up in Mexico City. Mexico City is like this big 20 million people going places, everywhere. But when I was growing up, I actually never met a living artist. So I didn't actually know you could be an artist, right? So I always thought, when somebody asks you when you're a kid, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? So I always said, I want to be an architect, because I thought, well, that's kind of like what art would take me. So I always had this in mind to be an architect. But in 1988, when we moved to Chicago and I went to high school, I was a junior when I moved. I didn't speak English, so I started, my only escape was the art class. So I went to art class. I joined the art club. Also the book was the yearbook club. So I did all the pictures, the cover for the yearbook and stuff like that. So my high school teacher noticed that I really had an inclination and perhaps a talent for art. And he was the first person, who put like that little seed in me. He's like, hey, Sergio, have you ever thought about, pursuing an art career? And I'm like, not really, I don't know. So he said, why don't you go to community college? I'll get you introduced to the professors and just take it from there. And so that's what I did. That's kind of like how actually that started the whole journey, was through my high school teacher, who saw an interest in me and put me in the right place where I could then pursue art. So the funny story is that, because I didn't know anything about universities or colleges here in the United States, I thought that, in community college, you were supposed to take all the art classes that they had. I didn't know that there were like certain credits that, once you finish your credits, you can transfer. So instead of spending 2 years, I spent 3, because I took every art class that they had. So that was kind of fun. But then eventually my professors were like, I think you need to be gone. So then I transferred, went to other universities, and, that kind of started the whole journey.
Okay. And then from that period, and mind you, for those that are not familiar, the universities in Chicago for art are some of the best in the country, some of the best in the world.
Absolutely.
From kind of that period, how did you transition, I guess, initially with your personal art career as a professional artist?
So I always loved two things, right? So even well, it was three. Architecture was one of them, but I dropped that because I was pretty bad at math. So I'm like, okay, architecture is not for me. So I went for painting, drawing, and also graphic design. So I've always loved all things marketing and design and advertising. So I went through my university period, and I started to enter exhibitions, calls for artists. And to my surprise, I started to get into a lot of shows since I was in college. From there, went to do my Master of Arts, took a little break and worked, by then we got married, my wife and I took a little break, and I went back to school a year later to do my Master of Fine Arts, my MFA. And that's really once after I finished with the MFA, where the question was like, okay, what am I going to do with this thing, right? What's the next logical step for me? And so my wife and I would talk, and by then I really, really had this idea of I wanted to open an art gallery. I was so intrigued by what happens when the art leaves the studio and how it moves. And I think from the beginning I never saw myself as the typical artist just working every day in the studio and making the art. And I've always been very curious about many things, and I like to do different things. You know, put my hands in different things that I want to really capture and learn. So that's why I think the interest of gallery life, curatorial life really started. So there were some obstacles. I had some problems. First of all, when I finished my MFA, I didn't have money, to open up my own art gallery. I didn't have any business savviness. Like, in other words, I didn't study, never took any business class. I never took an entrepreneurial class. Back then, this entrepreneurial idea wasn't, what it is today. There were not as many YouTubers doing entrepreneurial things back in the day. And and I didn't have a network of people. Nobody knew me in Chicago because I was studying art and I was just a student. So I had obstacles, but I thought, well, the only thing I have is friends. So I called 3 friends, said, hey guys, do you want to open another gallery with me? And they said, yeah, let's do it. So the idea was, let's find a space where we can use half of it for a studio, and then the other half we'll make it into a gallery space so we can show our art. So my friends, they said, yeah, we came on board. We started meeting and we started looking for space, and we found one at the Joviar Center, which during this upcoming talk at Creative Zen, I'm going to kind of disperse the whole story of what happened, nice. After that. But that was kind of like the initial idea, and what really started my whole journey was calling my friends and let's do something, let's we can wait for an opportunity to come, or we can make one ourselves. So we decided to make one ourselves, and that's what changed everything.
Oh, that's beautiful. And you're right. It's, a lot of people will sit and wait and hope for something magical to drop from the sky, but people that generally take control of their own destiny, put it in their own hands, reap the most rewards. Right. In pursuit of your American dream. I give you a lot of kudos and credit for doing that.
Thank you.
At what point, you've had quite a bit of success for those that are not familiar, but at what point from this early humble beginnings, art school, MFA, journey with your friends, did you know that now you are an artist and a professional artist at that?
That's a really interesting question, because I don't think I've ever sit down to think, okay, now I know. Like, to me, it's all being like this ball, that just keeps rolling. So I think, if the ball stops rolling, at that point, I'll sit down and think. But I always seen the world in motion. So I never had, that like aha moment, like, oh, I guess I'm an artist. So I guess, because the moment I'm doing something, I'm always thinking, okay, what am I going to do next? And that's kind of how my brain works, and that's how I like to work too. I guess, along the way, I realized it's working, right? And so let's just keep riding the wave, and the wave continues to
Amen.
To go.
And rode that wave down here to Florida.
Yeah,
we're very fortunate to have you Choose954 here in Broward.
Thank you.
And we are just, previewing your story, because Sergio will be our next speaker at Creative Zen, which we host the second Friday morning of every month inside the Cotilla Gallery at the Alvin Sherman Library on the campus of NSU. Doors open at 8:30. Complimentary breakfast bites, coffee, networking. Talk starts at 9. We're out of there by 10.
Gotta be there. Gotta be there.
It's had a profound impact on my life. It gave me my aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the event, which is why I pay it back and pay it forward and continue bringing in interesting people that have had amazing lives to share their thought-provoking and relatable story. So we're just giving a little bit of the preview here on the podcast. But you've had some incredible experience working for one of the largest art centers I've ever heard about, with two of the most accomplished brothers I've ever seen, and just flipping through the book of some of their work and accomplishments. There were presidents, there were, Obama, there were so many people in there. What was one of or some of the highlights from this experience? And if you could maybe just further paraphrase or summarize what that institution was and is and continues to be.
Yeah, so these are the Joe brothers, who they have a very unique story in the context of the art world too, where they were born in China. So they developed their careers in China. They are 5 years apart, and they both always wanted to be artists, painters. So, their career started in China before, China was open to the world like it is now. And it's a very different world back then in the 70s and 80s. So they got up to the cusp of what an artist could get in China. They had an exhibition at the National Museum of China in Beijing, and that was it. It was like, what else can you get? So, but they always looked outward. They always look for what's next for us. So they have an incredible story also how they became artists and such. But once they put their eyes on America and coming to the United States, they arrived to Chicago with about $40 in their pocket and about 40 paintings, and that's it. Now it seems kind of weird now in the world of the internet
Sure.
and social media, but back then we all have to remember there was no phones, no social media, no internet. It was just you and whoever network you could connect with. So they came to Chicago, invited by a local Chicago gallery, and they stayed, and they started to make ground, and eventually over the years they became international success. They traveled around the world, had collectors all throughout Europe, Asia, United States. So they made this incredible career on the really on the idea of how you can collaborate with another person and have this synergy dialogue of working as brothers, and that's why it's called the Joe brothers, without speaking. So when they do a painting or a drawing, they both work at it at the same time. It's very intuitive, but they don't talk to each other. So it's not like, okay, how about you do this? No, nothing. It's let's go and let's work. And so that's fascinating, and
Sure.
that has always been fascinating to me. And I had the opportunity, to work with them for, now it's going to be about 20 years. Labs. So I saw their height of their career when I first met them, and having the blessing to be close and see how their success grew over time. I think there are two lessons that I've learned from them that I can really pinpoint, that I still think about those, and I think one of them was perseverance, or perseverance. This idea of we're going to dedicate our career to this one thing. And even when a time when their artwork wasn't trending, or it wasn't, what the artwork was looking for, they stuck to what they really believe.
Mm-hmm.
And they believe that art had a mission, they believe that art had vision, and they didn't diverge into another thing just because the art world was looking for something else. So I admire that,
Mm-hmm.
and to this day, they still do the same. So their perseverance has been really, to me, a great example as an artist. And then the second one is also their business savviness. They were, or they have been, really good at watching for their brand as artists. The Joe Brothers brand, and how they manage themselves in the market, and the things that they have accomplished over time. So that's something that I also learned from them, the importance of your art, your name being a brand in the world, and um, the influence that you have with your brand over time. If you stick with it, and if you work at it, and the association that people will have with that brand, with your name over time.
And quite a brand. I mean, say the name of the center one more time for those.
Yeah, it's called the Joby Art Center. So in Chicago, and actually right now they're opening the Joby Art Center in Kansas City as well.
Yep.
So that's also now open, and there'll be a big opening coming up soon.
Quite a brand, quite impressive story, very noteworthy and established in their own regard. So over 20 years, I mean, fascinating, highest level art experience you were able to gain. And then you've established quite a bit of success personally, professionally, as well within your own practice,
Right.
curatorial, directing. And then, I didn't know you because I didn't live in Chicago.
Right.
But when we connected, the first few, I think 5 of the first 6 people that I even mentioned arts marketing coach to, before I could even say your name, they said, Sergio Gomez? Sergio Gomez moved to Broward? So now a lot of people know you from Art Next Level.
Yeah.
Well, for those that are not familiar, if you could tell us a little bit about the platform and what you and your wife do, but could you also maybe tell us some of the why behind, you didn't have to give this information away and teach people and help other people, but obviously you find it very rewarding and fulfilling. So kind of how did that all develop and unfold in your life now?
Yeah, no, I love that because, as I mentioned, like this ball that's always rolling, right? So we just roll into this as well. We had the gallery, Territory Contemporary Gallery, which was our gallery. As I mentioned, we opened this gallery with my friends. Eventually, 5 years after that, my wife and I took ownership of the gallery, and now it became our own brand. Started as Territory Collective, now Territory Contemporary. So working with Territory Contemporary Gallery and working with so many artists, we started to realize, that many artists, again, needed some of the business acumen, business knowledge to manage their art careers. So we spent a lot of time, in conversations or chatting or doing things in the gallery that, bring artists together. And particularly we were at an art center, at the Joby Art Center, when we started. So, there was always artists around, and these were all the conversations that we were having. But really what changed our mind is, or actually opened up our mind to this new world of coaching, is I was invited to speak to a group of artists in one of the suburbs of Chicago, where there's a lot of big concentration of artists. So I was expecting, well, maybe it's going to be 20, 25 people going. So we get there and there's like 100 artists, and like, oh my goodness, this is a lot bigger than what I thought. Then all I talked was about the business of art. And it was a presentation that was called Taking Your Art Career to the Next Level. That was the name of the talk. And so we talk about business and all that. And afterwards, there were so many questions and so much great feedback that, my wife and I were like, how can we repeat this again? How can we do this? And how can we amplify the message? And that's when we decided, well, let's do something online, because, yeah, we can keep doing workshops, right? And go to different art centers or different artist groups. But if we really want to help artists, we gotta be able to be found outside of Chicago. And that's why we started the Art Next Level program, which started first with a podcast, and the podcast then became a course, and then one course became 2 courses, and then became the courses, then eventually became talks, and then we ended up creating a membership platform online. So that's what it is today, the Art Next Level. It's an online coaching program where we look at the art career in terms not only of the business aspects, but the whole holistic part of the artist, which is everything starts with your mind, right? Your mindset. If you believe that there's a possibility for you out there, that there's a treasure out there, you will go every morning, try to find it, right? But the moment you start believing or you start doubting that, then you'll start to experience, greater failure. So our goal is to help artists see that potential. So Dr. Anina, my wife, she helps artists, dealing with mindset blocks, self-sabotage. We have another coach who is a good friend of ours too, Drew Harris, who helps us I deal with all aspects of the studio practice. He has a long trajectory, has shown around the world, collected around the world too, and so he talks about studio practice, how to find your vision as an artist, and so on. And I focus on all the business aspects of their career, marketing, sales, organization, productivity, which I love talking about. And I think it also came because I've always loved education.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I think, one of my strengths is teaching and talking about it. I actually taught full time at a university level for 13 years, but I really quickly realized that in academia there's a set standard of what you're supposed to teach, and you just gotta do that every year, right? You teach
Mm-hmm.
the same thing, and I started to get bored with that idea, and I want to teach what I want to teach, right? Not what I'm told is the curriculum. So the only way was to start our own thing, and that's what we did. And it's
Amen.
been it's been really fun. Now look back, thousands of artists have come through our program, and we always say it's a program with open doors, meaning that artists can come and go. It's not like some programs that you are hooked that
Mm-hmm.
there, but like the artist life it's complex, it's different, so it's an open door policy. Artists can come and go as they need for their career. So a lot of artists come for training, things that they need to do, or because they're stuck in their career, they learn, they get better, then they go on their own, and they come back again, a year or two later for more. So, and that's how we like it. I think that's how we help artists better. When we have a policy that allows artists to do this organically.
And it seems like artists have really gravitated towards it. I mean, we only connected during Lauderdale Art Week
Yeah.
when Business for the Arts of Broward hosted Candy Lopez for the Arts
Right.
Means Business Speaker Series. And fortunately, we were like two of the last people to leave in the lobby,
Yeah.
and our paths crossed. But I mean, it was been like, and I'm not easily impressed anymore. It was very impressive the amount of artists that knew you and your wife and highly respected and spoke very highly of you guys.
Thank you.
No, well deserved. Thank you. So, I'm glad that you kind of share that context that you're both educators.
Yeah.
She obviously has quite a history, quite a impressive and interesting skill set and experience that qualify her,
Yeah.
especially on the mindset part. And
Right.
hopefully, we'll have her be a future creative and speaker and
Yeah.
podcast guest as well that allow you to kind of merge together to provide much needed insight, feedback, experience, coaching resources, because we hear all too often, as arts advocates, oh, it's so hard
Yeah.
from artists. Oh, woe is me. Oh, I've tried everything and I'm just not selling, blah, blah, blah. This person has it so easy. What are, what are some things that without, obviously you're not going to ask you to give away the secret sauce, but at a high level, what is some of the programming curriculum material that you guys do deliver through the program that does allow artists to get to that next level?
No, that's a great topic because I as I'm talking with you, we're talking about the highlights and the things, but I had my very own really difficult mindset blocks. As we started, my biggest one at the beginning, before we started coaching, is I'm a second language speaking. I'm English is my second language, not my first. Spanish is my first language. I grew up in Mexico. So my biggest mindset block when we started, like, what if people don't understand what I'm saying? What if I mispronounce a word? What if I do a podcast and I screw it up? Because I couldn't understand what the person said. So I had my own set of limitations that I was end up being excuses, for not taking an action that for a while, kept triggering. I want to do it, but I had all these. Right? Oh, that person does it great because that person, is American and has no accent, right? Or has better looking, has blue eyes. The list was long. So I had to first really realize that actually my superpower is what makes me unique and different. This accent, this the way I speak. It's what it is, right? Of course, I'm trying to improve, getting better and all things, but I had to first deal with my mind in order to see the possibilities to succeed. So we use exactly the same thing as we work with artists in our program. Every challenge that we begin, every new program that we launch, it always, the first session is mindset. Because if we don't take care of our mindset, you can go through all the business classes, you can learn all the marketing strategies in the world, but if you don't take care of this and you don't, identify those mindset blocks that are preventing you from succeeding, you'll always have a hard time. You'll say, I tried everything. No, you missed this part, right? You try all the tactics, all the strategies, all the tips, but they didn't work for you because this wasn't worth that. So it's something that I love about what you do, and the ways you guys do things is also the mindfulness part of it, right? All the creatives and start with a time of meditation. And that's exactly what it is, taking care of this part. Because otherwise you wake up and something that we preach, and I preach a lot in my podcast and my videos, is start your day priming yourself. Like prime your day with meditation, whatever it is for everyone, meditation, prayer, whatever it is, but something that really takes care of this before you put every other part of your body to work, in the emails or the marketing. Unfortunately, and I was guilty of this, that's why I say it, because I used to be a guy who wake up in the morning, turn on the news while I was getting ready, go into my phone and check social media first thing. And so that led me to, have all these doubts and not success, until I realized, no, that's not how it should be. So that's kind of like the anchor that puts all of our programs together.
Amen. And I've since, as some people might know, become a yogi and
Yeah.
mindfulness practitioner. And yoga, mindfulness, breath work, meditation has had a profound impact on my life and
Yeah.
helped me with the help of our Zen partner in Creative Zen, my teacher, coach, friend, Chloe Ravel, the Gemini Rising, and her business partner, Kelly Talday,
Yeah.
that started Rise Nature Retreats. Through working with them and Chloe helping me develop my daily practices, rituals, routines, to I have diabetes and I've prioritized health. Health is important to me. Health should be important to everybody. To be your best, you have to feel your best so you can do your best. So if you don't start your day on the right foot, how are you realistically supposed to do your best? So I really appreciate you mentioning that within the context of helping artists, because I don't think that every artist, as a blanket statement, takes the time, even to like light sage or Palo Santo or take a deep breath or meditate or do breath work or go to the museum or read a book or listen to a podcast or do one of the endless amounts of things that you could do to set yourself up for success or to keep yourself motivated. We were talking about over lunch before this about fatigue with social media. Well, like it can be very tiring and can be very overwhelming. But if you look at these things like a practice, yoga is a practice. They can become easier over time as you practice them. And as I outlined in my first book, Learning to Choose, this morning routine that I've developed, while it might seem like a lot, I mean, I know now that I've been doing it for years, the baseline that I establish when I do these things in a rotation daily, that if I don't do them, I know how I will feel off. And I'm so glad that you're out there and your wife and Art Next Level highlighting the importance of the mindset and the mindfulness. There's another thing that I was very impressed. There's many things I was very impressed about since we've met and connected. But you guys also put out a book as well that kind of even takes it further. And this is not part of the coaching program separate. They could just order it. We'll link it in the comments. Could you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, so my wife had already written a book before for parents. She loves talking to parents and parenting coaching. And one day she approached me, like, we have to write a book for artists. And I had never written a book for artists. I had done a bunch of videos and podcasts that sounds good. I think it should be easy. She's like, no, you don't understand. A book takes a while to write. Okay, just show me how. So the way we structure the book is called Crush Self-Sabotage and Live Fully: The Artist's Wellness to Confidence and Success, Journey to Confidence and Success. Was exactly to help artists identify what our mindset blocks are. First step is you gotta identify them. We all have them, and realize that there's nothing wrong with you because you have a mindset block. Gotta identify them, know what to do with them, right? And because our greatest enemy as artists is ourselves. I mean, it's really weird, but like the artist's life uh, as a practicing career is really strange, right? Because I work in marketing before, I work in agencies before, I work in academia. So you go to work and there you're engaged with other people at work. You throw ideas, you get feedback from others. You probably have a boss or you are the boss. There are expectations. The moment you're an artist, you walk in the studio, you are the only one. You're the cleaning person. You are the accounting manager. You are the, social media, marketing person, and you gotta make the art as well, and then figure out what to do with it when it's done, right? And then you don't have anybody in the studio to say, okay, it's lunchtime or what's the deadline. It's just you, yourself, and you, and the artwork in front of you. Which sometimes, if these other things are not well taken care of, you have a hard time making the art because these things keep floating in your head, and you don't have a clear mind to actually approach your art. So it affects everything. So I think that is one of the big things with artists. So my wife said, "Why don't we talk about it in a book?" And the way we structure the book, like, because she is the doctor, she is the one who knows how the brain works. So she starts each chapter, let's say chapters, where she teaches something, about mindset blocks, self sabotage, and then what I did is after we didn't talk about it, but she just wrote it. Then she gave it to me. Then I read it, thought about it, and then made a response. So it's called Sergio's Take. And then I use, of course, I open a lot in the book about my own shortcomings and my own self sabotage things that I have experienced over life, and the experience working with other artists. Kind of like taking what she said into like the practical world of art. I always like to the way I like my way of teaching is practical. I like to make things practical and useful. Otherwise, they just stay in the head. So my job in the book is, okay, let's make it practical for artists. And then the third part of each chapter is your take, your section where you actually get to write down answers to specific questions that we ask in every chapter, so that you can figure out, oh, these are my own mindset blocks, and this is how I'm going to approach it next time this thought comes to mind, like next time. And it still happens to me, like you don't get rid of them, you just learn how to manage them, how to talk to your own self. I still sometimes I'm going to record a video and I second guess myself, uh, am I, do I look good? Now I got more wrinkles, or whatever the excuse may be, right? Or my pronunciation. So it's what to do with those thoughts,
Right.
that matters.
Everybody struggles with that. Everybody deals with that. Everybody has their own inner voice, inner dialogue. I cannot wait to read that book next, but I'm reading a book right now that I am in absolute love with, called The Karma of Success by Liz Tran. Okay. Big on the inner genius and inner critic and inner dialogue, as part of a book club that I'm so grateful to be a part of. And, everybody, successful people that are just starting out, everybody in between, all struggle with that. So I give you guys a lot of kudos and credit for highlighting that. And while you are in the space of creativity, working with artists and creatives, the talk, Creative Zen, is not only for artists and creatives. Right. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is creative. We're encouraging members of the Davie Cooper City Chamber to come. Excellent. Because you can still learn thought processes and patterns and tools and tips and techniques that can be applied to any life, any profession. And I do not paint. I've adopted a creative life, and I'm in the creative space, but I am not an artist myself. Right. But I've learned so much from artists and creatives. And it's ultimately, enriched my life to the point that this doesn't feel like, work, what we're doing. And that's why we're so glad to continue, supporting artists with Choose954. We have our next artist potluck coming up during 10 Days of Connection,
Oh, nice.
which is actually going to be on May 5th at our Zero Empty Spaces Gulfstream Park location in Hollandale, where it's a free event. We invite artists to bring a dish, maybe for 5 or 6 people. Not everybody eats everything. We go around the table.
I need everything.
We go around the table, we introduce ourselves, and then I have a prompt. Every time we do it quarterly now. We've been doing it since before COVID, so we've probably done, I think 20 of them we're up to now. It's a really great thing just to bring artists and creatives together, to share ideas, share struggles, share resources, share best practices, and we have some extra legs to it during Radical Partners annual 10 Days of Connection, which we're glad to be a part of.
Right.
So we do that. We still are creating affordable working artist studio spaces through Zero Empty Spaces, where we take empty storefronts or office space. We make working artist studios. We're now about to open our 31st in our 4th state in Little Rock, Arkansas.
That's amazing.
And I never would have imagined when I was sitting at a desk as a recruiter, working a 9 to 5, that, I would be in this creative space. But I made a series of choices outside my comfort zone. And thankfully, I was able to unlock my hidden potential to change my life, my community, the world, the art world, and beyond. And I'd like to think if I, as a regular guy, was able to do that, anybody could do that.
Exactly.
You never know when you're going to get that golden nugget, that insight, that aha moment. And that's part of my why, of why I continue to pay it back and pay it forward and continue to host Creative Zen, because you never know who's going to be sitting there in the audience yearning for that nugget. We're about to celebrate 6 years. We're so glad to have you. Glad to have all the former speakers. We archived the talks. They're on our YouTube page. So you could go back and catch other inspiration replays and stuff like that. If they would like to find out more about you and your work, where can they find you? Social media, the interwebs, and all that?
Yeah, so you can find me everywhere as Sergio Gomez Art. That's everywhere in all the social media platforms. And YouTube, also you can find my video channel there as well, which I do a lot of videos for artists on all the different topics of the art career. My website, Sergio Gomez Art, or Gallery 33 Contemporary. You can find it everywhere, also at 33 Contemporary. And yeah, that's pretty much where you'll find everything. And I'm super excited again to be, a speaker at Creative Zen. Looking forward. My talk's called "Closing the Gap." We all have a gap in our life from where we are now and where we want to get. So it's as you said, it's applicable to everyone. You don't have to be an artist. I use my journey, which has led me to learn, how to close that gap every day, little by little, and uses the idea of how fear sometimes we can use it to our leverage to actually close that gap. We all have fear, when we came here, like, is this the right move, right? When I open my gallery, is this the right place? Is this the right move? When an artist, when you're gonna start a painting, am I doing the right move, right? So these are all questions that we have, but I think if we leverage who we are, where we are, and what we have, I think we can close that gap that we all have. So come on, it's gonna be good.
April 12th, 8:30, second Friday of every month. Speaking about paintings, and I apologize for not asking sooner, but we're sitting in front of two of your works. Could you just give us just a brief overview, synopsis of your work, your style, and what they've been looking at in the background here?
Yeah, so I'm a painter for the most part. My work, I would describe it as figurative abstraction. So it's based on the human form, but it's abstract. You don't see like specific portraits of who those people are. I'm interested in the cycles of life, from birth to death. I'm interested also in the idea of presence, spirituality, and that's why my figures don't have a face, let's say, because I'm more interested, once we have this conversation, the presence, the energy that happens here, versus how we look like, right? So as I make my work, I really try to visualize that energy, that presence.
Amen. You do a great job. And there's an AR component to this that I saw before, which is incredible. You'll get to see some of that at the talk, and can find there's actually potentially some goodies giveaway treats, secrets that
Yeah, it's gonna be a little surprise for everyone that comes.
that does come, and it is a free event. Coffee, breakfast bite, guided meditation, free parking, community vibes, networking, and all that. I'm glad that you mentioned the cycles of life.
Yeah.
We, Andrew and I, are very fortunate to have just gone to Mexico City for our first time.
Oh, very cool.
For the
How you
global.
like it?
Well, we went during Day of the Dead,
Oh, amazing.
which is I mean, amazing. And we were there the first couple of days. We're like, where are the 20 million people that they talk about? And then you see the streets are lined for miles. I gained, and I love I love exploring cultures. I love learning. I love traveling, and I love learning on the travels. But really getting to understand the importance made me appreciate life and death and those cycles that much more. And art is such a powerful tool for storytelling,
Right.
history and life lessons. So I'm glad that you shared that. And there's, while he's very modest but very well accomplished within the various practices between gallery coaching. I mean, your work is quite impressive within itself. Not to be forgotten. So we appreciate that. The last question that we generally like to ask on the podcast here is, why did you choose the 954?
That's a good idea. So we were coming from Chicago. We didn't know much about South Florida, Miami area, other than we come every year for Art Basel, or gallery. Also, as shown here. So we would just come and since we started coming, we're like, we like the vibe. Of course, we like the weather, right? We're getting tired of Chicago. We love Chicago, but the weather, the winters. As we get older, I think that's where it started to hit more. Like, it's more difficult now, or the bones hurt and stuff, which we didn't when we were in our 30s, 40s. So we're like, we gotta look for a warmer weather. So we started coming, visiting, and we just for as much as I love like Miami itself, we didn't want to go into a big, high traffic, crazy city. We want to be able to drive to it, but be a little bit outside and have a good community. So we love it here. I think it's so far it's been such a welcoming community. It's great people, great proximity to big, like Miami or Palm Beach and whatnot. You can fly from here to just about everywhere in the world too. And it's just to our surprise, it's just been such a wonderful experience.
It's been a wonderful experience for us to have you here. We haven't rolled out anything yet, but we'll definitely let more artists, creatives know about platforms and opportunities that they can learn from you within the talk, within this podcast. And then we do hope at some point when we get there, that we'll make some type of offering available locally for artists, for Zero Empty Spaces artists. We have some ideas to roll out some targeted information, and we're really excited to help take our local artists to the next level. As we've been working through rolling out Choose954 and the art fair and the art week and Zero Empty Spaces.
What you guys have done is amazing.
It's been one part, but we try to we have brought in speakers to talk about certain topics, but we haven't really gotten that arts marketing, arts coaching part locally here. There's some programs that maybe they run once a year. It's coveted. You have to apply. They only let so many people in. With the Artist Entrepreneur program that Andrew helped start back in the day. So we're really glad to have you here. We're really excited to help take artists to the next level. We're not a cultural wasteland anymore, which was the old stigma here.
Which is nice, coming in now. I never saw that, so it's glad that's whatever is
not a cultural wasteland anymore.
History. And it's great to arrive and seeing what you guys are doing and feel like I didn't know how long you guys have been doing that or whatever. I assume like it's been going on forever, right? So it's I think it's creating a great community. It's a great vibe. It's great excitement, and that's why like it was a no-brainer when we're like, oh, this is our home.
Amen. It's such a no-brainer for us. We're big on win-win-win scenarios.
Yeah.
So grateful to have you. So encourage you to join us Friday, April the 12th, our next installment of Creative Zen. Doors open 8:30. Talk starts at 9. You're out of there by 10. If you need things to tell your boss, truthful reasons, why it's okay to miss the first half of the morning of work, maybe. We've got a whole list of truthful things. I just posted them on the Facebook event page and on the Facebook
There
page
you
as
go.
well. Hope you join us for the potluck. Still doing free tours of the Art Walk in downtown Hollywood every third Saturday night of the month at 7 to 9 o'clock. Still doing Accent Club, our goal setting accountability mini mastermind group. Still opening Zero Empty Spaces locations. We might have one not too far from here in Lauderhill coming up soon as well. And still just glad to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. We genuinely appreciate you taking the time out of your life to join us today. And for Creative Zen, appreciate you taking the time out of your life to tune in. Would love to hear why you choose 954. If you know somebody that would be a great addition to the podcast, I'm glad to do it. Always looking for more guests. And we're going to get your wife on here eventually. So appreciate you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.
All right. Goodbye.